Ready
Hey,
for chapter 2?
yes, my turn. Sentence labels fail, part 2. Virgil. I have very high standards. Anyone? Dude, want this leftover slice of pizza? Virgil. Oh no, you're meeting all of my standards! I can't reference. Oh gosh.
As you can see, this chapter is from Virgil's perspective.
I, I, but oh my gosh. Yes!
Yes,
Virgil
angsty
woke.
boy.
Yes, angsty boy! Alright. Virgil woke in pain, which was not particularly unusual. What was slightly more unusual, but not nearly as unusual as he wished, and a lot more terrifying, was that he felt drugged up. Not good. He tried to remember what had happened to him, casting his mind back through his day. He'd been hungry, he recalled. He hadn't managed to find breakfast, and only vitamin water had been in the budget for lunch. The need for food finally won out against the need for caution once more, and he'd gone out with the mask, hoping for score, and then oh, right. He'd gotten distracted. Stupid bludgeon. Bludgeon? Is
Yeah,
that how you say
legend.
that?
It's a verb, but this guy's using it as his name.
Okay, that's what threw me because I'm like, wait a second. Huh?
Yeah.
Stupid bludgeon had attacked the city, and, well, Virgil really should have just ignored it. He'd seen Bluebird, and he'd looked like he was kind of on his back foot, and there'd been a bunch of civilians around, since, of course, Bludgeon attacked a busy park because he was an asshole. So, like an idiot, he dived headfirst into the conflict. What was his problem? He knew what his problem was. He'd gotten attached. Stupid. Bluebird bought him a sandwich once. Once. And he followed him around like a stray dog. It wasn't like he would have done it if he'd known Virgil was Shadowcaster. He'd just taken pity on some poor homeless looking kid. He was a nice guy, or at least he had to maintain a public image of being a nice guy. It didn't mean anything. Oh gosh. I just realized, so this means that Bluebird knows him as both kid and the freaking villain. And the mask probably still hasn't come off yet. So they still don't know who this person is. Oh, Virgil, I love you, but holy shit. Okay, try. I'm trying to get myself composed again. I'm just like, oh, I'm already thinking as to what could happen when that mask comes off.
Things.
Yes. Try to tell that to whatever stupid, suicidal instinct activated in Virgil's mind anytime they were in a fight together. So, yeah, he'd gotten involved. He'd been content to let Bluebird throw the punches while he tried to get the civilians out of there the best he could. That way, Bluebird didn't have to be distracted worrying about them. Then everything had gone a bit blurry. A flash of silver, guns. Virgil didn't like guns. Not after he stepped over his own classmates' bodies. Not when gunshots haunted his dreams even now. Not when he looked at the tile floor by his locker and still saw splattered red, even if it had been cleaned away months ago. Oh, that's right. He'd been shot. It had just been a haze of pain and fear after that. He thinks he said something to the kid he'd taken a bullet for, and then he tried to limp off, but the bullet wound had been actually really bad and he hadn't gotten far. Bluebird had come after him, and sure, Virgil had just saved the man's life, but he knew the superhero couldn't exactly look down fondly on him. He was a villain after all. Oh god, was he in a prison cell? Oh god, was he not in a prison cell? Things happen to capture villains. Bad things. Things that surpass what he'd be getting if he made it home after this. To imagine he'd want to be back home, Virgil thought ruefully. He felt his heart rate speed up, and then he heard his heart rate pick up. Oh, fuck. Heart monitor. Are you awake? A voice he didn't recognize asked. Virgil went still, which was stupid because if he'd actually been asleep, he wouldn't have reacted at all. Do you want some water? The voice asked. We have you set up with fluids in your IV, but I imagine your throat's dry. The voice sounded nice. Maybe he was just in a hospital? It certainly smelled like disinfectant enough to be one. He peeked open his eyes, and nope, not a hospital and not a jail cell either. A room, plain and simple, but definitely in someone's house. This was disaster scenario. They wanted something, or else they would have taken him to the police or a hospital. They didn't want him in a system. They didn't want rules to regulate what they could do. His breathing hitched. He looked over at the person who spoke. He was wearing a mask, but not one that Virgil recognized on the hero or villain scene. It was a simple black thing that hid the top part of his face, revealing only his bright green eyes and the curve of his lips. Here, he said, offering a bottle of water. Virgil eyed it suspiciously. There was a moment of silence, and Virgil wondered if he had mind-reading powers, because he said, "You're already hooked up to an IV. I wouldn't need to put anything in the water." Right. Virgil reached out to take the bottle with slightly shaky fingers and took a sip. "Do you remember what happened?" the man asked. Virgil nodded. "Got shot," he said, handing back the water bottle. "Bluebird found me. I'm guessing he flew me here." "Yep," the man confirmed. "I had to perform surgery to get the bullet out and stop some internal bleeding." "Fuck," Virgil responded shakily. The man glanced at the heart monitor as it picked up again. "That thing sucked." Well, Virgil, how else are they supposed to make sure you're okay?
Yeah, but it's telling on him with his moods. It's a tattletale.
Virgil's just like, "Shut the fuck up."
Yes.
"It went well," he assured. "You shouldn't have any issues." Well, that at least sounded like the man expected Virgil to live for more than a few days, so that was comforting. Sort of. "Do you mind if I check the wound?" he asked. "Sure," he said, because he wasn't sure if he even had a choice to refuse. The man flashed him a quick smile before grabbing gloves and moving to undo the bandages with precise fingers, careful to block the wound with his hand so Virgil couldn't see. Can I see it?" he asked. The man glanced up at him briefly before his eyes cut to a spot on his chest and that Virgil knew well, and oh, of course he'd seen all of that. Apparently, judging that he'd seen enough to not be squeamish, or at least to know not to look if he was, he peeled back the bandages completely so Virgil could tilt his head to see it. "Wow, that's really good," he said, impressed. He didn't think he'd ever been sewn up that nicely before, even that one time he'd gotten to see a real doctor in the ER. "Well, I'd hope so, considering all that money I spent on medical school," he said with a chuckle, starting to rebandage the wound. "You're a real doctor?" Virgil asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Well, Bluebird didn't just take you to some random person on the street and tell them to perform surgery on you." Oh my god, yes! It's like, well, of course he wouldn't take you to just some random ass person. He took you to someone qualified.
Yes.
"That's cool," Virgil said, "being a doctor. Do you like it?" Something shifted in the man's face, and Virgil tensed, but he didn't seem angry about the question. "I do," he said. "I like helping people." He snapped off the gloves and threw them into a trash can before walking into the side room. Virgil followed him with his eyes as he washed his hand in the small bathroom sink. "There's a package of crackers next to you on the nightstand. Try eating if you're up to it." Virgil looked over. It didn't look particularly appetizing at the moment, even though he hadn't eaten in the last 24 hours. He picked it up anyway. His fingers were shaking and slimy from sweat, so he wasn't able to get a good enough grip on the plastic wrap to his frustration. The doctor came back over and Virgil froze, but he just took it from him and quietly. You cannot quietly open plastic. Just crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. Just took it from him and quickly tore it open with ease before handing it back. Virgil looked at him for a moment before taking one of the crackers and starting to nibble at it. Nibble, 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 do, 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 do. Nibble, nibble, nibble. "I'll get you something more later if that goes down okay. I started some soup a few hours ago." Virgil nodded and continued to nibble until one of the crackers was gone. He set the other one back on the nightstand for now. The doctor watched him with seemingly kind eyes, and he found himself relaxing slightly despite himself, if only for the moment. He went to push his hair out of his face, and his fingers hit fabric. "You left my mask on," he said, dumbstruck. "I'm a doctor. I follow the masking courtesy," he said. "Yes, but that courtesy was for heroes, which Virgil was not. But Again, Virgil thought he must be a mind reader, because he answered the question Virgil couldn't get out. "You saved Bluebird and a civilian's life at the risk of your own. That's more than enough for me to leave your mask on." That was, wow. "Why do you think Bluebird brought you here instead of the hospital? He didn't want you to be arrested because you helped him." "Oh?" He wasn't sure if he believed that, but wouldn't that be nice? For this to just be a kind thing. If anyone could be kind, it would be Bluebird. Of course, if he did just let him walk after this all would probably be a useless adventure, because, after that, Virgil wouldn't be able to stop himself from diving in front of another bullet for the man at the first opportunity. The man was watching him with an intense eyes, like he could read every one of Virgil's thoughts on his face. Was he a mind reader? "Are you a mind reader?" He did not answer. "Where is Bluebird?" Virgil asked. The doctor's lips twitched in amusement. "He's right there," he motioned to the floor with his head, and Virgil looked down to see a person who was clearly Bluebird. He just passed out on the floor. Just like, was he in there the whole time, just making sure he was okay?
I think so.
My God. Okay, 1 second. Just gotta grab my pillow. Are you adorable? I just screamed into the bear pillow, but I don't think it helped.
No, I could hear you.
Oh my God. I was not expecting that of Logan. Okay, 1 second. Let me drink.
Hey.
Okay, let's see if I can actually get through this now. I was not expecting him to just be passed out on the floor.
Into the second line.
I might just read this whole paragraph over because of how much I've been losing it.
Fair.
Okay. Keep it together. God damn it. Okay. Boomi. Keep it together. Put your shit in the box. Get it together. Okay. Come on. You can do this in semi-seriousness. Oh my God. I just wasn't expecting Logan to be passed out on the floor.
Yes.
Just flop. Okay. The doctor's lips. God damn it. Because I'm just like, the Logan from Standard Sites is so composed. And so you wouldn't expect him to just pass out on the floor. That's what's getting me, as I'm visualizing Logan just flop.
You know, he has been lying on the floor in canon at least once.
Yes, but that was one. And that was because he was given a jar of Crofters that was specifically made for him.
Yes, and he fainted out of delight.
Okay. Do this. I can do this. I can fucking do it. No. All right. Ah! That. Okay. God damn it. I'm just gonna be a giggly bitch. All right, I'm just gonna go for it.
Hey.
The doctor's lips twitched in amusement. "He's right there." He motioned to the floor with his head, and Virgil looked down to see a person who was clearly Bluebird. Yet at the same time, the man's current state threw him for a loop. He was wearing the masks. Oh God. No, it's got worse.
Yeah, I was looking forward to you getting to this next part.
It got worse. Fuck. Okay. No, I don't want to do this again.
You don't have to start over.
All right, I'll just start from the sentence this time. He was wearing the mask still, but instead of his normal superhero costume, he was wearing pajama pants and a long-sleeved t-shirt. He was sprawled flat on his back on the floor asleep. He's not as used to being up for such long amounts of time, the poor thing, the doctor chuckled. He walked over to him. Wakey, wakey, he said, and prodded him in the side with his toes. This is bizarre, Virgil thought as the hero startled awake. What's it, huh? He squinted sleepily up at the doctor. Why? He croaked, confused. To sway his lingering fear about the situation, Virgil felt the urge to laugh. Oh, like I've been for like the past 5 minutes. You brought a guest home last night, remember? The doctor asked. Bluebird didn't look any less confused. He's awake now. He blinked slowly, and Virgil thought of the lights in his earth science classroom. Mr. Foiler was a pretty apathetic teacher who played movies at least once a week. When they were over, he'd flick the light switches from left to right. First, the back ones lit up, then the ones by the board, then the middle ones, then the front row until everything was on and the classroom was bright. That's what happened to Bluebird's face in a few moments. Right, Bluebird said, all business as he sat up to turn intense eyes on Virgil. Hello. Virgil fisted the sheets in his hand. Hi. He stood, and despite the pajamas and mismatched... God damn it! Okay, he passed out on the floor. He's in his pajamas with the superhero mask, and now his socks are mismatched.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't even know why that one's funny to me. Life's too short to wear matching socks.
It's because Logan is so organized, and yet his socks don't match.
Wolves are pretty organized too, and their socks never fucking match. I don't know why this took me off guard.
Well,
it's Logan.
It is Logan. It is Logan, and he would prefer his socks to match, but unfortunately, his husband and his dog have ensured that they do not.
All right. Okay. He stood, and despite the pajamas and mismatched patterned socks, he still managed to cut an imposing figure, especially when Virgil was laying trapped on the bed, unsure if he could even stand with the pain in his abdomen, or if he'd even be steady with the drug still slugging through his veins. He didn't think he had the strength to make shadows, let alone make them solid enough to put forth any type of defense. Bluebird, on the other hand, could toss him like a rag doll with barely a thought. How are you feeling? He asked. Bad, Virgil admitted, as he had recently gotten shot. But I've been worse. I see. And Virgil really wished he could see the man's face at that moment because his flat tone gave away very little. He sounded maybe a bit angry. The doctor had said he'd brought him here and gotten him stitched up. And thanks for the whole not letting him get shot thing, but did the doctor even really know him? Maybe he lied to the man to get him to do what he wanted. Maybe he had intended to be nice, but then Virgil pissed him off and now that was out the window. Sure, he'd been unconscious the whole time, but Virgil really sucked, so he wouldn't put it past himself. Virgil! I will physically fight you! Not right now because you're recovering, but I will physically fight you! Virgil, I want to physically fight him and hug him and make sure he recovers. Mm-hmm. All at once. Oh, I'm gonna have fun with that line.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Oh my god!
That. Hang on.
I'm gonna have fun with that line.
Yeah, hang on. Let me real quick see if I can.
I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna have fun with the entirety of that paragraph. I saw several other instances, but oh my god, Virgil.
We'll switch over to AO3, and you can see the whole thing.
Okay. All right, that's gonna be the equivalent of me going supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. At least I know all of that word beforehand. I'm just gonna walk into that like, oh shit, here we go. A hand gripped his wrist, making him jerk his head up to see the doctor's concerned eyes. Right, Stupid heart monitor. So, am I your prisoner now? He blurted. Because if you want information, I don't really have any about anyone but me. And if you want information about me, you can just take off my mask and do a Google search or two, but I've never talked to other villains or anything, so I wouldn't know anything about them. Well, I did talk to the salamander once, but he's already in prison, so I don't think you'd need that information on him. And it wasn't even like a real conversation, you know? I was stealing from an ATM and he was like, do you want to work for me? And I punched him in the face because he was a creep, so I really don't know his secret identity or anyone's secret identity except for mine. But like I said, hey, a hand touched his shoulder and he snapped his mouth closed with a flinch. You need to breathe, the doctor said. His eyes were kind, and after the initial knee-jerk reaction, Virgil realized the touch was pretty nice, gentle but firm, grounding. Can you breathe for me? Virgil sucked in a breath. There you go, the doctor said, and the hand on his shoulder patted him a couple of times. Virgil dared to glance at Bluebird. From what he could see of his face, he seemed completely lost, like Virgil in math class. He didn't look like he was mad enough to punch Virgil in the face, at the very least, despite the doubtlessly incomprehensible ramble he just spouted. Yes, and thanks to you, I also had to do that.
Yes.
Virgil saw the doctor move his head in a sharp motion out of the corner of his eyes. Bluebird's eyes flashed at him for a moment and then back to Virgil. You are not a prisoner, he said. Though for medical reasons, I suggest you not leave yet. However, once you have healed enough, you are free to go. He seemed to be telling the truth. It would make sense that he was telling the truth with all Virgil knew about him. He was a pretty stand-up guy. He was Bluebird, the quintessential superhero, well trusted by the public since before Virgil was even born. He was a beacon of kindness, a symbol. He was a good guy. But, so were a lot of adults. It didn't usually work out well for Virgil. He bought Virgil that sandwich, though. You are not a stray dog. Yeah, but food, though. Okay, he replied softly. Oh no. Okay, Bluebird questioned. And yeah, there was definitely confusion. The doctor coughed. Bluebird said, okay, and shot him 2 thumbs up. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Virgil snorted out a surprised laugh and then ducked his head to try to hide his face with his. Virgil, honey, you're still wearing the mask. What are you doing? You don't have to leave. Literally, don't have to hide.
Yes.
Virgil snorted out a surprised laugh and then ducked his head, trying to hide his face with his hair in embarrassment, despite the fact that he was still wearing a mask. Bluebird was a dork. Who would have known? Yes, he is always like that, the doctor offered, giving him one last tap on the shoulder before drawing away. Like what? Bluebird asked. Adorable, the doctor responded, reaching up to pinch his cheek playfully as he walked towards the door. Bluebird batted at him, but he was already gone. I'm going to go check on the soup, he called from the hallway. Bluebird turned to Virgil, looking, well, not as nervous as Virgil himself was, but he was a close second. Do you have any needs I can provide for? He asked. Or perhaps questions I could answer. This is my house, if you would like to know. Oh. Just the fact that he's like, okay, I don't know if you're a villain, I don't know if you're a vigilante. You saved my life. So yeah, when you leave, yes, this is my house.
Yeah. He might be planning to be okay, I'm gonna spin you around a few times so you're dizzy and you don't know how to find my house again. But
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't see Logan going to that extreme.
but yeah, he trusts this guy enough to be like, this is my house. This is where I
Yeah,
live.
especially since also Virgil has literally never hurt him or given him any reason to think he would be a danger to him. So just like, yeah, this is my house.
Mm-hmm.
Virgil bit his lip. Is that what you were saying? Is that real, or was it just for the doctor's benefit? Because he seems like he can't really stomach stuff and you don't want to upset him. If you're asking me if I plan to torture you for information you don't have, or information you do have for that matter, then the answer is no, he said, his awkwardness gone and replaced with that firm intensity Virgil was used to seeing both on the news and in person. Okay, Virgil said again. Cool, thanks. Oh, the way that he's talking, he's definitely giving away the fact he's a teenager. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks, Bluebird echoed, seeming to chew on the words. Virgil shrugged at him, which seemed to confuse him even more. They were silent for a while. So, the man said with a cough, you like to rob banks. Virgil stared at him for a moment. It didn't look accusing or anything, after all. It was no secret that Virgil was a thief. It wasn't even posed as a question. I wouldn't say I like it. I'm good at it, but it's not really what I want to do with my life. Ah, he said. I like space. Oh my god, are you trying to discuss interests with me? He bristled. That is what acquaintances do, is it not? Wow. Virgil leaned back down to stare at the ceiling. I would take another bullet for you. Just straight up, I would take another bullet for you.
Uh-huh.
That that will not be necessary. Bluebird was quick to say. Especially after I just sewed you up so nicely, the doctor interjected with a stern voice from the hallway. Virgil tilted his head to see him. He held a tray, and when he got closer, Virgil could smell chicken broth, which wasn't usually on his top 10 list of smells, but today it smelled amazing. He hadn't been hungry up until that moment, but suddenly his stomach jerked awake with a vengeance. He moved to sit up and went a bit too fast, letting out a pinned whine. Slowly, the doctor reminded with a frown. Sorry, Virgil said quickly. The doctor's face gentled. Here, let me help. He set the tray down on the nightstand and then helped prop Virgil up with some pillows. Thanks. Oh my god, we're getting back into cuteness.
Mm-hmm.
I say as if I did not spend 5 minutes squealing at the fact that Logan. Okay. The doctor smiled in response and then picked up the tray again before setting it onto his lap. Now, eat up. We want to make sure everything's working okay after surgery. Virgil nodded and reached for the spoon, eyes watching the other occupants of the room carefully, not wanting to upset them, especially since they were offering food. The doctor actually seemed pleased that he was eating. Here, have some bread and some butter too, he said, and his hand came forward to grab the knife Virgil hadn't noticed. Virgil jerked back violently, and the tray went flying, but instead of Virgil's legs being scalded by hot soup, the tray and all of its contents froze in midair. Sorry, Virgil choked out, tears building up in his eyes. Sorry, I'm sorry. No, I should have, the doctor stuttered. I'm going to take this downstairs. He grabbed the knife out of the air and rushed off of the room. Sorry. It isn't a problem, Bluebird said calmly. The tray flipped back upright slowly, probably so he wouldn't freak out again and fuck up something else. Virgil watched the objects move through the air. You have a lot of control, Virgil said, amazed. It was one thing to toss stuff around, but it was a totally different thing to have enough precision to stop a liquid in midair. I've had a lot of practice, Bluebird replied easily. Virgil's eyes flickered to him and then to the beads of floating liquid. Can I touch it? He asked. If you'd like. Virgil reached out a finger and poked the nearest bubble of chicken broth. It gave slightly at its touch, like it was encased in a clear balloon. Weird. Whoa, that's awesome. The tray settled back on his lap, the bowl and non-knife silverware taking their places on top of it, but the liquid remained in midair for a moment. A few bubbles of liquid started to move, floating through the air lazily. Man, that has to take a lot of practice, Virgil said. You can blame your doctor for that, Bluebird said. He makes me throw popcorn and soda into his mouth from across the room. The edges of his mouth quirked up. Also, he's rather clumsy. This is not the first tray of food I've saved in my time. Virgil puffed out a laugh. It's really cool, though. I don't think many people with telekinesis can do this, right? No, it just takes more practice than most people are willing to put in. Most are content with just building strength, not dexterity. He tilted his head at Virgil. What about your power, if I may ask? I've never heard of someone having the power to manipulate shadows before you. Oh, I just have light manipulation powers, nothing that special. I can do the normal things too, but I learned to use it in the dark, so I'm more practiced at that. It's light manipulation? He asked. Yeah, it's less me making shadows and more me shoving away light, I think. He made a small shadow appear between his fingers and held it up for him to see. I think it must take some of the heat with the light because they're usually kind of cold. He had it wind around his fingers like it was a small snake. Fascinating, Bluebird breathed. And how do you make them semi-solid? Not sure, really, he said. I think maybe I'm forcing enough energy into the edges to make it work. Hmm, Bluebird said. One of the floating bubbles of soup caught Virgil's attention as it floated by his mouth. Oh, please, please, please do what I think you're going to do. He leaned forward slightly to snap his mouth around it.
Was that what you were thinking?
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
Bluebird chuckled as the bubble popped in Virgil's mouth. Still hungry? He asked. I only got like 2 spoonfuls, Virgil responded. Well, then perhaps it is time to stop playing with your food. The hovering soup floated down towards the bowl and settled there. Lame, Virgil grumbled. Eat the damn soup, he laughed. Language! The doctor gasped playfully, walking into the room. He turned his concerned eyes on Virgil. You doing all right? He asked. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. I just kind of panicked. You don't need to apologize, the doctor said. No harm done. He reached slowly over to give him a hair ruffle with the gentlest touch imaginable. Virgil smiled at him and ate his soup. Oh my god. But yeah, just like, oh, please let him do it.
Yes. Cute.
Oh my god. Logan's probably confused as fuck. He's just like, I thought this was another adult, but they're acting a lot younger now that I'm actually interacting with them.
Well, Patton also noms things in midair.
Yeah, but no, I'm just talking. No, yeah, but no, I'm also just talking about how like his mannerisms and his speech patterns because Virgil isn't as put together as Logan is, and even Patton's using his word structures in a more matured manner than Virgil is.
Virgil's talking like a teenager.
Probably because he is one.
Yes. That's the end of chapter 2. Come back next week for chapter 3.